Randy, I'm thinking about all these different environments, embedded systems, etc. You want to give us an example of a program that you'd like to highlight?
So you really you lined it up well for me. Let me let me let me talk about a process rather than a program. I mean, obviously, a
Sure.
program would be flank speed, which is the end
Mm-hmm.
result of the process I'm about to lay out at high level. When the portfolio office thought through, how are we going to have a sustained zero trust ecosystem? It begins from the concept of identifying, what do you want to build? What are you trying to solve? All the way to fielding and sustainment and, end of life. And so we came up with a process which actually changes a lot of things in DoD, which may very well affect the rest of the federal government. We're still testing it out. But we came up in the portfolio office, and we've transmitted this in conferences that we've have described this of our ZT assessment process that mostly begins with the developer. The developer is building something, but the question becomes, how do they know they hit target level ZT before the actual red or blue team? And so we came up with a tool, a Q&A assessment process that's repeatable, that can reliably inform the developers that they are likely going to be ready for a purple team. And so that's pretty invaluable, and it's automated. From there, we developed 10 ZT criteria, scenarios. You could think of them almost as TTPs of the adversary. Because what we want to do is, instead of using a red team just to get in and plant the flag and say I got in, we are flipping the coin completely on how we're using red teams. Instead, we're taking a DoD red team and we're using them to improve the product. So instead of getting a file or a folder like they used to have as the example of what they needed to do and show that they got in or show that they couldn't get in, of course they were always successful, we're having them go through those 10 ZT criteria as part of the assessment process. So we are on
Mm.
station for 2 or 3 weeks, and the red team and the blue team are launching scenarios of these 10 criteria. Why are we choosing this criteria? Because it's repeatable. Also, the 10 criteria were specifically developed to exercise pretty much all the activities up to advanced level ZT. So by outcomes rather than checklists, if the red team is stymied or blocked from a number of these ZT criteria, if not all of them, it indirectly but very strongly indicates that the activities were correctly implemented in the system. So we had to think about that. So, how do you red team a ZT configuration? Well, this is what I'm describing right now, because traditionally you couldn't do it in the way the old red teams worked. So we have red and blue now attacking, improving, attacking again, improving. And it goes back and forth for 3 weeks. So I don't necessarily care what the product necessarily does in the first week. It could be very bad. What I truly
Mm-hmm.
care about is the last week, on whether or not that ZT system is solidly defending. That's what we care about. From there, it gets installed. I'll just jump to the installation, and essentially the DoD is using it. Well, how do we know it's going to stay in configuration? We call it station keeping. We evaluated it or assessed it at a certain level, let's say target. How do we know it doesn't fall out of target? Well, what we now are thinking and are doing is developing a continuous assessment process using commercial tools that automate the testing so that a human red or blue teamer doesn't have to do it all the time. And this is how we're going to cover the entire landscape of millions and millions of endpoints from systems being tested. We're going to have leave behinds of these devices that are going to do continuous assessment in an automated way that is specifically bespoke to the system of the ZT that was evaluated or assessed. Because we're going to be using the information from the very beginning and feed it into the end. So these systems are going to be a little bit one-off, but they're going to test for these 10 criteria. And if there is a hole or if something's out of whack, it'll be immediately informed to the security operations center. So that's the sort of A to Z process we're thinking through, and we're practicing it now with our pilot activities. And so this is so
Amazing.
very different than how we do red and blue teams currently.